Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Electric Viking. Hope you've had an awesome day. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate your support. Now, I've read maybe 50 articles about this issue, about this interesting news. Ford and SK Innovation partnering on factories, battery manufacturing, and building plants in several different locations in the United States. This is good news. Absolutely good news. And it is news that suggests that maybe there is a very small chance that Ford will succeed beyond 2030, 2035. I'm still skeptical. I'll tell you why at the end of this video. But I think the best thing to do is to share with you the best article on this, which was written once again by Steve Hanley from CleanTechnica. And after that, I'll share with you my thoughts based on the research I've done that goes beyond the issues that people have been sharing in these articles. It has a bit more of a look at Ford's financial situation right now, has a bit more of a look at Ford's promises over the past 48 hours. For years, we at CleanTechnica have been wondering whether the EV revolution begun by Tesla would put legacy automakers out of business. They were slow to react, often dragging their feet, making flowery promises backed by few actual commitments, and even lobbying governments to delay electrification of the transportation sector. Yep, that wasn't only Toyota. Ford was doing that as well. Things have changed in the past 18 months, however. Those sleeping giants have begun to stir. Volkswagen is going all out to make the electric car transition happen. Hyundai Group is right behind. I don't agree with that, but anyway. And recently, General Motors, Ford, and even stodgy Stellantis have begun putting their shoulders to the wheel of change, or making statements that suggest that they're trying to do that. Anyway, the other day we wrote about Jim Farley, who has been the CEO of Ford Motor Company for less than a year, telling the press his company needs to find ways to make electric cars more affordable. Why can the Chinese do it? No, just a question. Just thought I'd interject with that. Anyway, just days later, Ford and SK Innovation announced a new partnership that will pump $11.4 billion into a new factory, or actually it's a series of factories. But anyway, to build the next generation F-150 Lightning and create 3 new battery factories in Kentucky and Tennessee. Jim said, just outside Memphis, we're building the biggest auto plant in Ford's history. It's called Blue Oval City and is where we'll build the next generation of electric F-Series pickups and advanced batteries. It's the new future of American manufacturing. By the way, that was marketing. I'm not sure how advanced these batteries are. Could be. Who knows? The new assembly plant will be the first of all new factory from Ford in the past 50 years. Located in Stanton, Tennessee, a wide spot in the road northeast of Memphis, the site will cover 9 square miles. 9 square miles. In other words, it's more than 3 times bigger than Tesla's site in Austin, Texas, which was massive. 9 square miles. I mean, I find that hard to comprehend why you would possibly need 9 square miles. But hey, cool. Bigger, better, right? It's Texas. Okay. It's the largest facility built by Ford in its 118-year history, and it's 3 times the size of the historic Rouge factory in Michigan that has been cranking out cars for nearly a century. Now, I just want you to think here before I continue in this article. Ford have factories all over the world. Many of them they've built. Many of them they own. Many of them they owe money on right now. Ford have a lot of debt. A lot of debt. That debt is rated BB. It's actually rated 1 level above junk. But Ford is going to spend $11.4 billion on another factory on a 9 square mile piece of land, even though they do already have a lot of factories. And their car sales are declining every year. Just worth thinking about that. Lisa Drake, Ford's COO for North America, tells Reuters the site will have room for future expansion. I'm sure it will. It's 9 square miles. For us, this is a very transformative point where we are putting our capital in place now in a very big way to lead the transition to EVs. According to the Financial Post, Drake emphasized there will be room to expand on that site as needed. So she said, we are putting our capital in place now in a very big way to lead the transition to EVs. I'm not sure how much capital Ford has. I know they have some, but I know they have a lot of debt. So anyway, let's hope that they can get enough capital. The factory will be dedicated to producing electric F-Series trucks, beginning with the second generation F-150 Lightning, which will be built on a dedicated electric truck platform. The first Lightnings will utilize a modified chassis adapted from the current F-150, which is equipped with gasoline or diesel engines. Now, as you all probably know from seeing my videos, I really like the F-150 electric vehicle. I think its charging speed is a major problem, but I think Ford will figure that out and probably end up changing that by the time they actually build these vehicles. Ford expects to employ 5,800 workers at the new factory in Tennessee, which will consist of the assembly plant, a battery factory, and a supplier park. The entire facility will be a zero-waste site that will recycle materials and scrap to avoid sending any materials to local landfills. The company recently invested $50 million in Redwood Materials, which proposes to be a leader in recycling lithium-ion batteries. This is a new Ford, Farley told The Verge. This is show, not tell time. He added that electric cars today are in a similar place as smartphones were in 2007. This story is not about propulsion. This story is about digital vehicles with embedded systems and a customer experience led through software that gets better every day and changes the definition of a car from something that gets you from point A to point B to something that enables your full life. My God, wow. Sorry to use the Lord's name in vain, but that level of marketing spiel is just too much for me. Anyway, SKI and Kentucky. In central Kentucky, Ford plans to build a dedicated battery manufacturing complex with SK Innovation. So two different things here, two different stories kind of put into one. Dubbed the Blue Oval SK Battery Park, the complex will cost $5.8 billion and create 5,000 jobs. Batteries for the company's next generation Ford and Lincoln EVs will be assembled at the site's twin battery plants. The construction money will flow from a new joint venture called Blue Oval SK. In all, Ford is putting in $7 billion to the combined venture, while SK Innovation is kicking in $4.4 billion. This partnership may have been just announced this week, but you can be certain all this was swirling around in the background when SK Innovation and LG Energy Solutions were locked in a patent infringement dispute earlier this year. SK Innovations had to end up paying billions of dollars to LG Chem. I don't remember the figure, but yeah, there's massive payments going on for a decade from SK to LG. Farley estimates that Ford will need 140 gigawatt hours of battery manufacturing capacity per year and expects the three new battery factories to provide 129 gigawatt hours between the three of them. That compares to the 140 gigawatt hours General Motors and LG Energy Solutions are planning to make at their two factories. Volkswagen expects to manufacture 240 gigawatt hours of batteries per year at its 6 European battery factories, with more coming from its newly announced factory in China. So it does appear as though Volkswagen is planning to make probably around 3 times as many gigawatt hours of batteries per year as Ford are, based on the current information we have right now. As always, Tesla is out in front. Elon Musk says the battery factory adjacent to the Grundheide Gigafactory in Germany will be able to produce 250 gigawatt hours of batteries when fully operational. Sounds like the Death Star, doesn't it? That is approximately equal to today's entire world production capacity. So the amount of batteries that the companies are building over the next decade, it's just truly staggering when you look at all the numbers. I've got them on a spreadsheet. I'll show you those in a future battery video. It is one thing to say Ford will hire 11,000 new workers to staff its new factories in Tennessee and Kentucky, but it's another thing to find qualified employees. So Ford says it will spend $525 million on a nationwide job training program, starting with $90 million for a pilot project in Texas. The hope is to train the next generation of workers on the intricacies of EV manufacturing and maintenance, not only to work at Ford's factories, but also at its dealerships and to make repairs in the field. Now, before I move on, wow, Texas, the state, there is so much money being poured into that state right now. I mean, I think if Ford can pull this off and find this money somewhere, I know SK Innovation will find it because we know who they're backed by. But if Ford can do this, and we know Tesla's building the Gigafactory there, there's billions of dollars of investment going into Texas over the next 5 years. Really, really huge scale here. And really good for the inhabitants. I say that as though they're animals. For the people of Texas. Our industry has an enormous shortage of technicians, Farley says. We need to recruit a huge number of technicians who are good at doing service on the road. Does that sound like Ford plans to emulate the Tesla system of sending technicians to where people live and work to perform needed service chores? If so, over-the-air updates may be the worst thing that ever happened to dealer service departments, which many dealers depend on for their profitability. Yep, big issues for dealers going into the future. You can see why they're very hesitant to sell and promote EVs. Ford is receiving financial incentives from both states in exchange for agreeing to build its new factories. Tennessee and Kentucky are also contributing money in the form of training grants to ensure that future workers have the necessary skills for those new jobs. I like that. Fantastic. Farley says the primary consideration was finding locations with competitive energy rates, since a battery plant uses 5 times the energy of a traditional assembly plant. That's a lot, 5 times the energy. Ford also prioritized finding greenfield sites with no prior environmental issues so that it could build quickly. We need to move fast, he says. They sure do. Another issue is whether those 11,000 new jobs will go to union workers. The Financial Post reports that the UAW, which represents many of Ford's US hourly workers, has said the automaker has a moral obligation to make sure any battery plant jobs are good-paying union jobs. If Joe Biden's infrastructure bill passes with significant federal subsidies for electric cars built in America by union workers, that will make union representation even more important. Lisa Drake says the workers will be free to decide whether to join a union or not, and adds that Ford has emphasized to SKI that it must not discourage union membership. But keep in mind that Tennessee and Kentucky are both firmly anti-union states like most of its neighbors in the Southeast. There's a reason mill owners fled New England in the 1950s to non-union states. The UAW may try to organize the new factory workers, but they won't be handed it over on a plate. Very interesting. It seems as though this decision by Ford to build these factories and all over Texas could be motivated by Biden's bill. Biden's bill, it's not Biden's bill, by the United Auto Workers Alliance bill, which they created and obviously got Biden to announce. That's what happened. And so it does appear as though this is a good thing. Really, it's good for the United States workers that they actually build factories in the United States, not in Mexico like they have been doing, or in other countries outside of America. So it appears as though this may be the first good news that's come partially as a result of that bill. The takeaway. Here's the one detail we haven't mentioned yet. Ford is not expecting these new factories to be up and running until after 2025. Seems reasonable. Tesla usually only needs 18 months to go from concept to products rolling out of the door. The news from Ford is extremely encouraging, but it's fair to say the company still seems to be lacking a sense of urgency of its California competitor. The other thing to keep in mind is that someday in the not too distant future, the Tesla Cybertruck is expected to arrive, and it will have, by the time it does, over 2 million reservations. The F-150 Lightning is an awesome vehicle that already has, I think, several 100,000 reservations. Incredible. Clearly, those reservations have led to giving Ford and SK Innovation the courage. It is courage to actually go out and decide to make this decision, to spend this money, to invest this money in an electric future. Now, but it's very much a continuation of the American pickup truck idiom, the F-150 is. The Cybertruck is a complete departure from the traditional truck. Truck buyers are a very stodgy group of folks. Will they embrace the Cybertruck, forcing Ford, Dodge, and Chevy to come up with futuristic designs of their own, or will truck owners thumb their noses at the Cybertruck and force Tesla to build a more mainstream truck? Well, I think we already know partially the answer to that. Tesla wouldn't have 1.35 million reservations for the Cybertruck. People didn't like it. That's a lot of people that have actually put down a pre-order. That's just a pre-order. That's not just sales. When it comes time to selling a vehicle, there's obviously a lot more sales you get on top of pre-orders as well. The answers to those questions, Steve Hanley says, are critically important. Nobody in their right mind would bet against the redoubtable Musk, but Ford has just put an $11.4 billion marker on the table. This could get interesting. Well, technically that's not true. Ford's put $7.5 billion on the table. The rest comes from SK. Even if Ford pulls out, SK will still have all their battery factories and they can supply somebody else with the batteries. Okay, here's my takeaway. Number one, this is a good news. good to hear Ford putting their money where their mouth is. Number two, they don't have a whole lot of money. I mean, they do have cash, but they have a lot of debt. Their debt is rated poorly. They have to pay high interest rates as a result. Ford are in a make or break situation. Really, they had no choice but to do this. It was the right decision. But Ford have said, this is what they said, they're going to fund the development, this build, the $7.5 billion, with their cash that they make from their vehicle sales over the next few years. That, to me, is an alarm bells ringing situation. I believe Ford are not in a position to wait 3 years and hope they get enough cash flow from sales of their current vehicles, which are very low this year because, Ford say because they don't have enough semiconductor chips to deliver vehicles. That may be the case, but I don't see how Ford is in a position of luxury to wait several years for these profits in order to pay for these factories. That's how Ford said that they will fund the factories, through profits. I don't see those profits coming right now. I don't see anyone saying this. I don't know why no one else has mentioned this. I've read 50 articles on this and no one has said anything about that. Maybe because they don't want to be negative about what appears to be a positive thing. And it is a positive thing, but Ford really need to, they need to get this money from somewhere. And so the question is going to be, where is that going to come from? My other question is, why is it necessary for Ford to build all these new factories? This is essentially like 5 new factories. And why is it necessary for them to acquire 9 square miles of land for just 3 of those factories? So we're talking 9 square miles for 3, and then there's whatever land for the other 2. They're building 5 factories and acquiring all this land. This is going to cost a lot of money. But they've got factories all over the United States. I mean, why is it necessary for them why can they not use any of those existing factories? There must be, machinery in those factories that some of it they can surely reuse for production lines. I mean, an EV is different, but it's not entirely different. So I'm just not sure why it's necessary to just create everything from scratch. It seems as though they're spending Lamborghini money, but they only have Ford money to spend, if that makes sense. That's my 2 cents. Now, Will Meek says, it's about time Ford got serious. For comparison, 129 gigawatt hours is between 1 and 1.5 million vehicles per year. So it's not actually that many vehicles. I think Ford needs 4 times this amount of batteries by 2030. Now, someone has expressed a different response here. Freedom EV says this won't help much in 2026. These plants won't all be finished until 2030. In 2026, the ICE pickup market will be very small at $7 a gallon for fuel, lower performance, can't make vehicle to grid money. Free fuel causes Ford profitable sales will be limited to how many EVs they can make. And at the moment, only about 15% EVs by 2026 isn't going to cut it. I don't know if that's true. But even if we're optimistic and we say that 30% of Ford's sales of EVs, 30% of Ford's sales will be EVs in 2026, then that is still nowhere near enough, and they need to be even more aggressive. Now, on the other hand, Zachary Strahan, who is, I believe, one of the editors at Clean Technica, said this is big. Not what I expected at all a year ago, but Ford is in my top tier of legacy OEMs who are serious about BEVs. I was hoping I wasn't being fooled. This is showing it ain't just a PR push. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below. I'm fascinated to hear how you think Ford is going. Do you think, as I do, that they've got a good chance of going bankrupt by 2030? Or do you think Ford really is serious about going all electric? Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.